The people have spoken. You want me to read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, what many people consider to be the greatest novel from one of the greatest authors of the last 75 years. I'm not gonna lie, I was not expecting this book to win the poll because I thought you guys liked me. I thought you guys wanted me to read Pet Cemetery or Sword of Kaigen, but no, you guys picked Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, a book many people consider to be quite unapproachable, quite difficult to understand, quite highbrow, quite literary. But I think I am equal to the task, even though my job is literally me getting hit in the head for a living. You guys wanted to see what a UFC fighter thought of Blood Meridian. I read The Road several years ago, and it was okay. I found it a little pretentious, but it was quite moving. But I've heard that The Road has nothing on Blood Meridian. And I look forward to seeing what this story has in store for me. Welcome to the reading vlog. Hopefully, I don't seem too stupid. Childhood in Tennessee, runs away, New Orleans, fights, is shot, to Galveston. First initial thoughts. I tried to listen to the audiobook. Not the right move. And then I tried to read the book while my kids were playing around me. Not the right move. But then I sat in this room and I'm reading the book aloud and I finished chapter 1. Here are my initial thoughts. I like the prose. Do I miss the punctuation? Yes. Punctuation is there for a reason. It makes things more clearly understood. And I feel like the book would have been better with punctuation. I would have preferred to have some quotation marks, more commas. I love a good comma, but I'm liking the prose. I like how punchy and jazzy this book is. The short sentences, they just get fired at you. And that's kind of nice. I'm not going to lie, that is quite pleasant. Already, I'm enjoying the reading experience of this more than I was enjoying The Road, but The Road was more easily understood. So we'll see how I like the themes. Judge Holden's introduction, that was actually kind of funny. I know he's the bad guy. I've heard all these things about how he's a terrifying, unforgettable villain antagonist, but how he just marches into this tent and falsely accuses the Reverend of, doing things with a goat and doing all these other things, saying that he's illiterate, and the Reverend's trying to defend himself, and then they're all at the bar, and they're asking the judge, how did you know all these things? And the judge just says, I've never seen that guy before in my life, twirls his mustache evilly. So, Judge Holden, so far, pretty dang funny. The book, it's gonna cause me to grow. I'm gonna have to really flex my mental muscles, but I'm enjoying it so far. 1/3 of the way through the story, I'm on chapter 10. I'm starting to understand why there has never been a film adaptation of this book. It is incredibly violent. And a lot of the scenes are not like cool action hero types of violence, but disturbing, sometimes war crimes level of violence, particularly the Tree of Infants. That chapter was unexpected. That definitely would not fly on any TV show. There's a sense of tension building throughout the company of scalp hunters. Oh yeah, forgot to mention. Yeah, they're just hunting natives and scalping them, and they're gonna sell their scalps. Everyone has to get a certain amount of scalps. And that hasn't even begun. And the violence is already pretty over the top. We had two guys that shared a name having a bunch of back and forth, and one of them beheads the other guy. They shoot this native old woman in the street and just scalp her. They're doing wild things. And the judge is quite a compelling character. He's still kind of funny. I'm still not sure how Judge Holden is this super memorable antagonist, but I'm not even halfway done with the story, so I'm sure I will know eventually. Almost to the halfway point. Just finished chapter 11. Got some more information, some more of the backstory about Judge Holden, the mysterious Judge Holden. I don't know too much about him, but I do know how the company of men that are under his leadership met him. They were stranded in the desert. They are out of powder for their guns. They were being chased down and hunted by Native Americans. And all is lost, and they bump into A lonely man sitting down on a rock by himself, no explanation. And they just start following him. And he takes them on this crazy journey where they like find sulfur and they find guano in a cave, and then he brings them to the top of a mountain. They're like putting their faith in this dude. And then there's the part where they're all peeing into all the ingredients, and they end up making their own gunpowder. And at the last possible moment, Judge Holden saves his band of men from the Indians. And he just seems like such an overpowered genius character. I had no idea that's where the chapter was going. It's very reminiscent of the chapter that introduces Randall Flagg in The Stand. I know comparing these two books in the eyes of the lit bros is going to be sacrilege. But The Stand has one of my favorite chapters of all time. It's when they introduce the primary antagonist, and just the way Stephen King describes Randall Flagg is just so poetic, so overpowered, so evil, and something I can never quite forget. And I'm getting the same kind of vibes from the introduction chapter about how they met Judge Holden. Because Judge Holden seems a bit overpowered. He's a genius. He speaks languages and people don't understand how he could speak them. He knows how to make gunpowder out of various natural ingredients. He knows about the histories of various tribes in the area. He's very learned. And he's focused so much on the destruction of people and things around him. He writes mysterious notes inside his notebook, and we don't know what's in there. He hasn't done anything too ominous yet. I know he's one of the most, terrifying, memorable antagonists in all fiction. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm sensing something building here. I'm not sure what this tension's going to build to, but Judge Holden is a really terrifying figure. He's still hilarious. I stand by that. He's very funny. I find his wit and his condescension towards the men around him very entertaining. But there's just this atmosphere of violence and unease around him. And Cormac McCarthy did a very good job at depicting that. So I look forward to learning more about Judge Holden. In chapter 12, little blurb, crossing the border, storms, ice and lightning, the slain Argonauts. I love how he just starts off chapters with basically, footnotes, not footnotes, an outline of what's going to happen. And while you're reading it, you don't know what's happening. And then you have to go back to it and then say, oh, okay, that happened, checking it off. It's very interesting. It's a very exhausting read. I read like 20 pages in an hour. I hate that. But I'm starting to see why people like it. Whatever in creation exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. That is a bar. I will never forget that line. I'm about halfway done with the book. Judge Holden, I now understand why he is considered to be so evil, so despicable, so terrifying. The way he logs things into his notebook. He traces down markings on the cave walls from indigenous peoples that no one has record of. He copies them all meticulously, and then he destroys them off the wall. That way only he has the knowledge. That's evil, especially as a history nerd. That is so despicably evil and heinous. The man literally bought 2 puppies and then threw them into the river, and his guys shot them. He literally bought puppies to hurt them. That's evil. You've heard of the book Save the Cat? When you want to... When a writer or an author or director wants you to like a character, they make them save a cat. They make them do an act of kindness that makes you like them. Cormac McCarthy does the exact opposite. Kill the dog. It happens. I was not expecting that. And how they pass the point of no return. They attack the first Native American group of people. They scalp them. They sell their scalps. They party. They have a crazy rager in the town. And they're partying so hard. The town hates them. They start hiding from them. And then they start killing peaceful Native Americans. And then they start killing the people of Mexico and selling their scalps. So they're just on a rampage. And they're staying ahead of the authorities. And they go to this town. And Judge Holden, we see how evil he is. I just picture Judge Holden as that big, fat, white vampire from the Blade franchise. Because he's white and hairless and round and terrifying. That's kind of what I'm picturing in my mind's eye. He's terrifying. And his whole idea about how you can exercise dominion over the world, over creation. He's on this path of absolute power, complete influence, and that's quite compelling. It's amazing how much of a picture Cormac McCarthy how clearly he's able to paint this picture of Judge Holden with such little dialogue in comparison to so many other antagonists in other stories. He really is larger than life. I'm wondering how he's going to doom the men that are following him, because there's no way this path ends in anything but doom and ruin and hardship. I'm not sure if I love this book, but I am compelled. I am intrigued, and Judge Holden indeed is a terrifying creature. Just finished chapter 19. I'm almost done. Just that much left. Less than 100 pages. Being said, it's probably still going to take me a day and a half to finish it because I have to read it out loud. And that's frustrating. This book is both too long and too short. Too long because I'm reading it and it's taking far longer than it should. Far longer than it should. While at the same time, I wish there was more. I wish there was more between the front and back cover. I wish there was more descriptions. I wish there was more, adjectives with the dialogue. I wish there was, punctuation marks. I wish there was so much more to this book because the things I'm enjoying immensely. I think Judge Holden is a masterfully depicted character. Masterfully depicted in a very minimalistic way, which is impressive. I love Glanton. I love our supporting cast of characters, even though most of them are being, they're going away. They're dying. They're being removed from the narrative. The kid's also not really much a part of the narrative anymore. Maybe that'll change in the last little bit. This book has made me laugh out loud. It's made me think deeply. The judge makes me laugh. I'm not sure if that's what he's supposed to make me do, but the part in chapter 18 or chapter 19 when the idiot, because they're transporting this man who has his brother in a cage because his brother has mental difficulties and he can't take care of himself, and people pay money to see his brother in a cage. They come across a group of women and they see this man in a cage and they feel empathy. They feel pity. And they take the idiot from them and they bathe him. They put him in nice clothes. And the first thing the idiot does, he almost drowns himself. He walks into the river and he slips. And we're thinking, oh, well, that's a tragedy. And then the judge saves him. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting Judge Holden, the man who bought 2 puppies only to throw them into a river moments later and have his men shoot them. I wasn't thinking he was going to save the idiot. I'm sure it's for some nefarious evil reason, but we shall see. The judge's might makes right monologue was amongst the best I've ever read, the best I've ever consumed in any form of escapism. The idea that your might makes you correct. And he kind of does it in a very persuasive way. He talks about how we have debates, we have games that we play in life. But at the end of the day, they could all be reduced down to, they could all devolve into, well, I'm right because I could beat you in a fight. I'm right because I will win the war. The winners are who are ultimately correct. And I fundamentally disagree with that. But Judge Holden does it in a very thought-provoking way that I find persuasive, compelling, interesting. I don't know how this book is going to end. I'm not sure why everyone talks about how this is one of the best written books of all time, because I feel like you have to kind of have Stockholm Syndrome. I feel like a lot of people read Blood Meridian and they decided, well, I had so much trouble reading this and everyone else said it was amazing, so I have to say it's amazing. You all have Stockholm Syndrome because this book is good, but not anywhere near one of the best books I've ever read. I do have 70-ish pages left, so maybe my opinion will change. Perhaps I too am just a man who is an idiot in a cage, incapable of understanding the world around me, incapable of understanding little minutiae of things in my life. I am a slave. I am a victim of my own perceptions, my own weaknesses, my own shortcomings. Much like the idiot in this book, I feel like the idiot in the cage is the one I relate to the most. It is very interesting to me, and I'm not quite sure if I understand why Judge Holden is held in such high regard amongst the pantheon of great literary villains. Because this entire band of men, all of these soldiers, are so evil, so despicable, so deplorable, that Judge Holden doesn't really seem that much worse, if I'm being honest. Like, for example, just amongst a few of the evil things they have done lately, they conspire with the Indians to go take over the ferry. They say in 2 days we're going to attack. They then go to the owner of that ferry, convince him that the natives are going to be a problem, and then when the natives come there 2 days later, they betray them. They shoot them down, and the doctor, the man who owns the ferry, thinks that he's been saved, and then they just take over the ferry. And then things escalate, because things always escalate. These guys throw a big party, because they always throw a big party. They get raucous, they get debaucherous, and then they start charging more money to the people that want to take the ferry across. And then they start just taking advantage of them, stealing from them, murdering them, doing all manner of crime towards them. And it's evil. It's despicable. And Judge Holden's taking part, but all these men are the bad guys. And I'll read a book from the point of view of a bad guy. I love an anti-hero. I love when I'm reading a multiple POV story and I get chapters from the bad guy. It gives me perspective. But I don't care for these characters. So I'm actively rooting against these guys the entire time. And you don't want that in a story. At least I don't want that in a story. I want somebody to root for. But they're all bad guys. I want them to lose. I want bad things to happen. I know Glanton's going to die because the book says that Glanton will never see his wife and children again. And that his path is doomed. And I'm kind of excited for that. A lot of things just happened. What I wanted to happen just happened. And I'm not going to lie, it was very satisfying. The group of soldiers, they are ambushed by the natives that they betrayed earlier. Glanton wakes up, gets his skull cut in half. Black Jackson, my favorite of the Jacksons, he's watching the sunset, ambushed by natives, shot by arrows, dies. Everyone else in the group dies, but four survivors. The kid, the ex-priest, the judge, and the imbecile. So now there's two parties. The judge and the imbecile on one half, the kid and the ex-priest on the other. And now the judge is hunting them through the desert. He has a rifle. The kid and the ex-priest are injured. How will they escape? How will they survive? I don't know. One thing that does bug me, though, is that at one point they were all around this watering hole. And the kid was the only person with a gun. He had all the power. He listened to the judge's monologue about how might makes right. Everyone's telling him to shoot the judge. He doesn't. Which bugs me because throughout the entire book, the kid's talking to the ex-priest and he's saying, I'm not scared of him. And then it seems like he's scared of him. I don't know why he spared the judge, but now he's getting hunted and now I'm pretty sure he's going to die. The ex-priest is going to die. I don't know why the judge, likes to have the imbecile around him. It's a really interesting little henchman. So let's see where this narrative ends. It's just now becoming an enjoyable read. It's been a very arduous, difficult read. I've laughed a few times, but I haven't really been enjoying the experience. But I'm enjoying the chase now. And they are dancing. The board floor slamming under the jackboots and the fiddlers grinning hideously over their canted pieces. Towering over them all is the judge, and he is naked dancing, his small feet lively and quick and now in double time and bowing to the ladies. Huge and pale and hairless, like an enormous infant. He never sleeps, he says. He says he'll never die. He bows to the fiddlers and sashays backwards and throws back his head and laughs deep in his throat, and he is a great favorite, the judge. He wafts his hat, and the lunar dome of his skull passes palely under the lamps, and he swings about and takes possession of one of the fiddles, and he pirouettes and makes a pass, 2 passes, dancing and fiddling at once. His feet are light and nimble. He never sleeps. He says that he will never die. He dances in light and in shadow, and he is a great favorite. He never sleeps, the judge. He is dancing. He says that he will never die. The end. I'm not sure what the judge was, but it seems like he was a kaiju of some sort. A mysterious entity. Not wholly human. Gigantic. all-powerful, mysterious powers over money and corruption. And he surely does have a corrupting influence over all that lie in his path. I don't know what the ending was about. The kid and the ex-priest, they survive and escape the judge. They make it to the town of San Diego. The kid escapes being hung. He talks to the judge in prison. The judge lets him off. The kid travels about doing odd jobs for several years, and the boy becomes a man. He agrees to escort a group of people across the country, and he abandons them. He comes across some religious fanatics, and they get slaughtered. And he witnesses the carnage, and he goes out to find the judge. At least I think he goes out to find the judge. It's ambiguous. He's traveling around, and he bumps into the judge in a tavern, in a bar. And the judge comes up to him, and they talk about agency and meaning and destiny, and whether or not it does or doesn't exist. And then the kid leaves the bar for a second, and then he walks back, opens the door, sees the judge naked. The judge embraces him, and we're not exactly sure what happens with the boy, or I should say the man, and the judge. Naked, debaucherous dance party begins. The judge is pirouetting. He's the life of the party, and the book ends. And I'm not sure what it all means. It's very humbling, and I'm actually quite vulnerable reading this book and not using Spark Notes, not looking up what all the chapters mean. I wanted to jump into this literary experience blind. I didn't want to have any preconceptions about what this book was about. And if I missed some things, that's fine. Because it was really something special. This was a reading experience unlike anything else I've ever gone through. The judge's monologue about might is right, about how war is God. I will never forget that monologue. I will never, I think, stop pondering this book. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. There were some parts I really enjoyed, and there were some parts that I hated, but most of it I was completely indifferent to. It was a unique experience reading this book because I feel like I was co-creator in this journey because it's so sparsely detailed. It's both dense and bare bones. So I feel like I was creating this narrative in my brain. That's why I think it was a dark comedy sort of adventure, because I'm a dark, troubled individual with a sense of humor, and I laughed out loud during several points of this story. And I'm not sure if that was appropriate, but that's what happened. I'm being honest with you. I found the judge hilarious. I found the misadventures, this band of misfits, this band of criminals and evil people. I found their adventures and their hijinks interesting, compelling, and comedic. I found the ending very thought-provoking. I don't have catharsis. I don't think that this book is meant to make you feel cathartic. But I do feel like I've accomplished something difficult, accomplished something special. And the judge, whether he be a delusional man, a demon, a kaiju, a demigod, a force of nature, I don't know. But I will never forget the judge. I'm not sure if he is the best antagonist in all of fiction, but the ideas, the concepts are the most unique, the most memorable. I feel like Cormac McCarthy walked this tightrope. He could have detailed the judge more, and perhaps that would have taken away from some of the magic. Perhaps the reason why the judge is so memorable is because we know so little about him, because everything is so ambiguous. And evil in real life is often ambiguous. We never completely understand why people that are evil are evil. We could look at their past and we can make assumptions, but we can never truly know, and I will never truly know, who Judge Holden was, how he became the individual he is, and what it all means. Unless I Google it and Cormac McCarthy describes it in detail, then, I'm wrong. But I don't think McCarthy would have done that. I think this story is meant to be ambiguous. I look forward to reading some literary analysis of it online. I'm sure people have a bunch of theories. Like, what happened with the judge and the boy at the end? Did the judge kill him? Was the boy consumed? Did the boy live happily ever after and just abandon the judge? Also, I don't want to get into it, but maybe he was essayed by the judge, because the judge, when they get attacked by the Indians, he is in a room naked alone with an underage girl and the idiot. Anything could have happened in the final confrontation. I don't know. You tell me what you think happens. I'm interested. I would love for you guys to explain your reasoning. I can't wait to deep dive into more of the lore, into more of the themes, into more of the symbols in this book, because I'm sure I missed the majority of it. There's a reason why many people reread and reread Blood Meridian. And I'm not sure I will anytime soon, but I definitely will jump back into this story again before I give up the ghost. Thank you guys for voting for this book. I'm not gonna lie, I was not excited to read it, but I'm glad I did. I feel like I've grown as a person. Reading Blood Meridian is like reading a book for the first time. I felt like I was learning how to read. It was humbling and empowering, not to get too dramatic. What book should I read next, guys? Leave it in the comments below. Tell me what you thought about Blood Meridian. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think of Judge Holden? What was the ending all about? Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.